Happy National Aviation Day. It is Wednesday, August 19th. We're a little delayed today, but all good. We are rocking and rolling. Exciting news today. We're going to talk about how not to burn your marketing spend budget when it comes to paid ads. But before that, you know the cue. We're going to do our intro video and get into today's show. Doug, good day. How are you?
It's an awesome day. We had an awesome client call. I'm super excited. Actually, you know what? I'm super pumped.
Super pumped. Yeah. So today, amazing client call, and this is what we're really excited about, which I think leads into what today's topic of discussion is, and it's, how not to waste your budget. If you're doing any sort of paid advertising, at one point in time, you've probably wondered, am I getting the ROI for my event? So really, that's what we're going to be discussing today. Doug, you want to kick right off into it? I mean, do we want to talk about like the common paid advertising mistakes, or I mean, I think how do we want to set the table on this?
The one thing I will tell you, and I get this question all the time. People come to me and say, "Hey, my ads aren't working."
Yeah.
And it's usually one of two things. They've bounced around to a number of agencies who've promised the world, like, hey, I'll get you 100 leads per month, or, I'll fill your calendar with bookings. But the irony is most people, and this is probably the single biggest problem, most people have not run anybody through the bottom of their funnel to know if it works or not. So by the time they get to paid ads, they're just like, well, why isn't my calendar full? Or why don't I have $1 million of orders?
Yep.
And I've always told people, you're going to run paid ads. You need to build the funnel in reverse and make sure that that bottom mechanism is converting.
Yeah.
But just generally, people don't get into that.
Yeah. Well, and to kind of add a little more context to that is that like most people think that like pay-per-click ads, right, are the magic bullet for getting website visitors and making sales. And as much as I wish that were true, like obviously it'd make our lives a whole much easier. We can't climb our way into like, the time machine and go way back when the internet was like first a thing and users were a lot less jaded. We didn't have banner blindness and the competition wasn't as stiff. But in today's marketing landscape, especially with this whole work from home stuff now, simply throwing a bucket of ad dollars at a couple of platforms can no longer just guarantee traffic or conversions. And with more advertising platforms and more sophisticated technologies out there, obviously comes more pitfalls, right? And if you're not optimizing your ads, like Doug had mentioned, for the funnel, for specific distribution platforms, you're just not going to get the most out of your budget. And in fact, it's probably, again, to your point, Doug, is that the lack of strategy and even worse, poor creative can result in lost revenues. And, you're just pissing your money away. So PR disasters or customers ignoring your brand or tuning out your message completely that's what's in store for you without everything that we just mentioned. But again, it's not all doom and gloom, because today, again, we're here to help you deal with all that. And, we don't want you to think of advertising as a black hole, as some portray it to be. But when done right, it can be extremely effective, especially for reaching customers that are seeking a specific product or service, or if your website's still relatively new, or that and you haven't jumped up with enough SEO juice to kind of beef up your organic search, right?
Well, the one thing I would say, most people, they look at just throwing money at the problem. And by doing that, I mean, most times you do that in life. Like, you can throw as much money as you want, but if you don't understand the problem well enough, you're just wasting good money after bad. And it's funny, a good colleague of ours, Jim, he even said, and I can never remember the exact quote, but he's like, you can go broke by spending $1 a day. And in certain cases, I think people just don't understand how much money they actually need to spend to acquire net new cold customers. And most businesses, when they look at like how to grow, and they start to think about ads, I think if they just took a step back and actually thought through what they were willing to pay to acquire a customer, they would have a realistic budget. Most often, one of the leading reasons I see people not performing or not having winning ads is they simply picked the wrong type of ad or the wrong platform, and they ignored the fact of where is my audience and how much do I have to pay, one, to get their attention, and two, to get them to do the action I want.
Yeah.
So in most cases, they're just underfunded and they don't have enough ammunition to go after and fight the battle of attention to get them to move through.
Yeah. And that's really, that's really like developing a strategy around it, because I mean, if you dive headfirst into buying ads without a strategy, I mean, like, that doesn't map back to your business objectives. And like you mentioned, Doug, like if you don't know how much you're willing to spend to acquire a customer, I mean, you're basically just throwing spaghetti at the wall and hoping something sticks. And your strategy, not only from the awareness phase, but it should inform how you differentiate your products and services from the competition, and then segmenting that audience and allocating enough budget, like you mentioned, having enough ammunition to fight that fight, because it takes more than one time for somebody to start making decisions. Certainly getting into that phase where you're contemplating, doing business at the bottom of the funnel with that conversion. So, defining your key performance metrics, your what is your customer acquisition cost? What is it that you're currently spending? We talked about this in a previous episode. What is it that you're actually spending to acquire a customer? What is it you're willing to spend to acquire a customer? And then what's the lifetime value of the customer is going to help you frame your strategy of how you go around this. And again, in that way, you're just not burning ad dollars.
And for those people, like if you have been spending ads and you're not seeing any real things, I would start to look at, one, like, are you on the right platform? Mm-hmm. And are you putting the right type of content on the right platform? Right? Like if you're going into, I'll give Facebook ads an example because this is the one I see the biggest thing. A lot of people go into Facebook ads and they pick a conversion ad coming out of the gate, but they only test it with a couple $100, but they're running an image or some stock photo that's unrelated to the experience when they get to the landing page.
Oh, that's the worst.
But we see it all the time. Like, or you have an agency, they have like an old post, and like if you don't have the path mapped out, even if it's a short one, mm-hmm. I gotta tell you, like for most people in B2B, the simplest path they could take is have a 3 to 5 minute video that's really simple, that explains a concept that they can help. Like for marketing, for example, we'll do one that talks about why nobody should do SEO, or why SEO is dead.
Yep.
And then we explain the construct. It's not dead. It's really powerful for the right people. But then the next thing we do is offer an audit and then just book a call. Yeah. But most people are just trying to run a lead ad to get a name into an email list that they don't follow up with for 5 days. Well, that lead's dead. Yeah. Like you waited too long.
Well, and then like not having a landing page, like if you're running a specific ad for a product or service only to send visitors back to a generic homepage, like you're wasting 80% of your investment there, because again, your visitors aren't likely to take the time to search all over your website for the product or offer that you had in your ad. Instead, they'll just leave, right? So to increase that conversion rate, like you need to ensure that you have a message offer that matches by using a dedicated landing page for that. And the same thing goes with print ads. We'll have our friend Jim on, who was probably what Mad Men was based off of. I mean, he was the guy in the newspaper world. And, if they had the technology that they do now, and this is why he loves everything digital, is that, again, you have these offline conversions, or you have traditional advertising that drives back to nothing specific that you can allocate and have attribution models for, and then to have, again, that specific message, that message offer match for people. So in order to get the conversions, I think you need to deliver like a coherent user experience. And this is where, again, having relevant, timely, quality content, not stock stuff that's not personal or that's impersonal, you know, it needs to be a good example of your brand and that brand cohesiveness.
100%. It's funny because I spend most of my time going through ads and ad platforms, and just some of the fundamental mistakes you'll see. Another big one, and this is one that drives me nuts,
Mm-hmm.
is when you have somebody who's running an ad, and then on the site or the landing page, they don't have the Facebook pixel or a Google remarketing pixel.
Oh, that drives me bonkers. And actually, it's funny enough because we talked about how we're going out and trying to help people. Like I've started creating Loom videos, like basically going to people's sites, because if I see somebody doing pretty consistent and really good work on social, right? Like you think they'd want to like benefit from their activity on those platforms, and then I go to their websites and realize none of these remarketing or retargeting tools are there, and it just like it's like the face palm, right? Because like remarketing is like the best way, or a great way. I don't want to say best way, but it's just a great way to avoid paying for low quality traffic, because you're showing your ads to people who've already visited your site or have interacted with your brand in like one way, shape, or form. So, you know, like you can set specific like criteria that they have to have, such as again like visiting a page or a landing page or time on the site, number of pages visited. Like you can get really strategic when it comes to like retargeting and targeting. But again, like unless you've got those tools in there, why are you going to bother spending your money on paid ads when, again, you don't really know who these audiences are because you haven't taken the time to identify them?
Well, yeah, you're essentially having to pay double because you have to go reacquire the traffic every time. Like one of the greatest savings you can ever have is a twofold approach. One, use the right type of ad, and then make sure that you have the tracking tools so you don't have to pay to reacquire it. And if you really want to save money and not blow your budget, have some type of micro conversion where you can get them onto an owned asset, like an email list or even a text list. Because if you're always having to pay to go back to the trough, the rent's getting more expensive every month.
Oh, every month.
Like traffic and attention is just, the costs keep going up. Now, it came back a bit because of COVID, but it's inevitably going to get more expensive. Attention's not getting any easier or cheaper.
No.
So getting it onto something that you don't have to pay for, that you don't have control over, is one of the easiest ways to save money. And to be honest with you, the one thing I would tell every single client is if you have some type of new offer, go test that offer to whatever list you have. I don't care if you need to test it against friends, family, past colleagues. You need to figure out how to test that offer before you go spend a lot of money on it. And to be honest with you, you're trying to get to email anyways. We always talk about working closest to the transaction.
Yeah.
The further you move away in your sphere of influence, the more expensive it is to borrow or rent somebody else's attention. And if you have or start to build your own email list, you always have something to come back to or promote or ask for referrals. Like you can get a lot further in business just working with your existing customers than trying to rely solely on net new cold traffic.
Yeah. And you just said something interesting in there, Doug, and I think this is kind of like the flip side of the coin. You know, when we talked about like testing out there, and again, you can do this again for very simple, like a $1 a day type things, but it's not scaling campaigns is I think the flip side, right? So like, let's say that you've tracked and analyzed all the metrics and you have a very good idea of like what's working and what isn't. That doesn't mean you just stop spending your budget on ads that don't work or double down on those that are meeting or exceeding your ROI, your target ROI. You want to gradually step up your spending on ad campaigns that are doing well and keep an eye on those performance metrics to make sure they keep generating the ROI you're aiming for, right? Because you'll see, again, a point like where you start reaching diminishing returns, which I think there's a funny thing. Like you'll never run out of potential audiences, but you'll run out of either budgets or, what's the other thing? I'm trying to think off my head. But my thing is, I'm sorry, I get sidetracked there. The thing is, you'll never run out of potential customers, right? You're going to run out of budget first, or you're going to run out of creative ideas before you ever do that. So having an ability to scale your campaigns to continue to grow your business is the other part that I think people leave out. They just kind of set it and forget it. And, you know, if they are tracking, it's like, oh, we're good there. I mean, most businesses are in the business of growth. Otherwise, you won't be in business for long. So if something's working, again, let's continue to ramp it up and scale it.
Well, I think matching the expectations to the platform as well. Like you mentioned the $1 a day strategy.
Mm-hmm.
That works amazing for content engagement. Like getting people to engage with a post or engage with a video. But $1 a day will never be enough for a conversion campaign, like or a lead campaign. I mean, the average cost per webinar attendee ranges between $5 to $8, depending on your industry.
Yeah.
So if you're running a campaign, chances are you're probably going to want to fill a webinar within a week or two.
Yep.
Right. Well, if you're only spending $1 a day, I might get one per work week, you know, or one a week.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have to run this campaign for 100 weeks to get a decent show up rate.
Yeah. Having that end date and setting those goals.
Yeah. And then just understanding and being realistic about how do I actually need to plan my buy and what are industry specifications? And one tool I always go back to, so WordStream, they publish a report that has benchmarks for every industry, both for click-through rates, subscription rates. So the webinar example I just gave you, if you just go look at some of the industry stats, and HubSpot's another great resource. They have an insane amount of research based around conversions.
Mm-hmm.
If you just go look at, I have a goal to accomplish X, like I want 100 people in my webinar, you're probably going to have a budget somewhere between $750 to $1,000 to put those 100, because that's what it costs for somebody who doesn't know you to be willing to give you their email address to show. Now, the show up rates and everything different, but reverse engineering and setting your expectations is going to put you in a more realistic state. Because the one thing I hate to see happen is when people, you know, look on board, like, hey, I have this goal, I'm trying to grow this info marketing business, or I'm trying to accomplish this sales goal, but I only have $1,500. Like, well, like just look at some of the benchmarks in your different industries and see, okay, are my expectations realistic? Mm-hmm. Or am I setting myself up for failure from the beginning of the campaign?
Yeah.
Because I can say, Thomas, if you only have $1,500, you should probably be buying an email list or probably be buying or using that $1,500 differently because it's too competitive in a campaign. It just won't work properly.
Yeah.
But if you can just look at it, you'll know what to do.
Yeah. And with that competitiveness that you talked about, again, if you don't have the ammunition to compete, the other side of that coin too is, spy on your competitors. And what I mean by spying is, how's your ad performance compared to your competitors? And if you don't know the answer, then it's going to be really hard for you to cut through the clutter and make your ad and your brand stand out again. You're just going to be just like everybody else. So to get a better understanding of that competitive landscape, there are a number of tools out there that you can use to monitor mentions, keywords, and ads, and then use that to your benefit again to see what's working, what's not working for them, and make it your own. I mean, that's a really, really cool tactic to, again, be able to kind of conquest what's other people already doing well, and you just turn it and make it your own.
Well, it's amazing. If people just slow down and stopped rushing campaigns to market and just took that moment to what is my customer really asking? Mm-hmm. What is the problem I'm really solving? And then go look at some of the top ads. One of the easiest things people can do is go to Google, search the problem, and see who's ranked. Even though it's an open auction, Google still puts the top search result up in the #1 spot, even in ads, because they want to protect the search experience. Mm-hmm. If it was just solely auctions, people would just bid for things where they wanted people to go. Google's actually protected the quality of the search, so even the ads are still super relevant. So if you're in a category or you want to see, that's the first place to start. Mm-hmm. And then ironically, if you go through some of those advertisers, they've done it properly, you're going to natively see some retargeting ads. So you're going to be able to map out and reverse engineer some of what they're doing. Sure. And one of the favorite things that was forced to change inside Facebook because of the Cambridge Analytica scandal, they made all of their ads 100% transparent.
Yeah.
So if you want to see what your competitors are doing, literally just go to their Facebook page. On the right-hand side, there's a thing that says page transparency, see ads. Like you can go to anybody's page and see the ads they've ran, and you'll have some type of idea based on the engagement. Like you can go, you say that if you see an ad on your competitor's page, it's got a lot of likes, engagement, comments, that's a good indication that it probably worked. But you can also click through and see the landing page and kind of have an idea for where they were headed.
For sure. And then the next phase of that is like, don't spam your audience. Like, don't exhaust your audience, right? Like in this case, like more is not better in this case. You know, keep in mind, like, you know, on these platforms, like people don't log on to Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn to see ads. Like that's not what they do. You know, so if you're constantly bombarding them with your message like too frequently, they're going to tune you out, and then there becomes that banner blindness, and then your ad becomes less effective. So, you know, so if you notice that your engagement's dwindling, even if like you start to scope in your audience, you may want to lessen the frequency of your ads again. And this is where, again, making sure you know what your KPIs are, and making sure that you have the proper measurement and tracking tools in place, the retargeting and remarketing stuff. That's all going to help you run better, more efficient, optimized campaigns.
100%.
Cool. Well, that was, God, I feel like that was like a fire hose. I mean, we'll have to like do a masterclass or something on ads like that. But it was just so funny today talking through, again, our client call, talking about content and the distribution of said content. Because again, that's the war for attention that we have to fight today, in lieu of having events. Even if you're at events, I mean, you're still fighting for attention. That's why you have the bigger booth space. That's why you've got the fancy trifold banners or neon signs or tchotchkes that you're giving away, right? Like you're constantly trying to vie for attention. And the nature of today's world is that, you know, you have to be able to battle online for that attention.
You know, I couldn't agree more. When you think about how powerful it is to be a speaker at some of those stages, right? Like it is. Marketing has become an attention game, but what you do with that attention and how you nurture that relationship is the difference between going for gold or going for bust when it comes to ads.
For sure. So, you know, if you've run ads in the past and had suboptimal results and you don't really know why, or if you're thinking now, well, heck, I don't have these events to go to. How am I going to get in front of my audience? How am I going to create brand awareness? How am I going to create more leads? If you want any help with that, again, we are happy to give and provide free audits. Again, we've got a checklist of things that we just run through to make sure you're doing the basic fundamentals right, and then point you in the right direction to get you going. So if you want to do that, again, comment below, shoot us a message, let us know. We'll get that set up. Again, we're having our website and stuff all getting spun up too, so that'll be just another easier way for you guys to convert and do that. But in the meantime, again, let us know what you thought about today's show. Let us know what you want to hear more of. Again, we're just taking the top questions that our clients ask us, and what we see that's most frequently asked out there are the top mistakes that people are doing. And we try to do that to help you guys fix it. So thank you all for joining today. We'll see you all next week, and have a great rest of your week. Take care.
See you, everybody.